Hi, my name is Wes Hansen, and today we're going to be discussing modifications to a 1996 Powerstroke, things you can do to update your truck. This truck right here is about 15 years old. There's many things you can do in order to upgrade it as far as performance, suspension, as far as ride quality, and interior for comfort. As you can see here, in 1996 they did not have a leather seat option. Obviously, in 1996 they did have Centurion, which was another vendor make leather seats for these trucks. What I did was I went to a wrecking yard, picked up seats of a 2004 King Ranch, and retrofitted them to the truck. There's a lot of work to be done in order to make this fit. The driver's seat and the rear seats actually fit very nicely, but the passenger seat has a little bit of modification to be done to the floor panel with a hammer. Now, everything actually works properly. If you'd like to step back and check the controls, as you can see, everything works. Up and down, the seat heaters work as well. I opted for a center console in the middle because I did not use the middle seat. Now we're going to move on to the suspension modifications that I did on this truck in order to make it ride better. And back in 1996, through about 97, they had a suspension system up front that was adequate from the factory. When you had to do a lift kit, change the springs, it did not ride very well at all. The reason for this was Ford decided to put the shackle up front. And the shackle up front did not allow for much movement back and forth. So we hit a bump, it was a very rough ride. Now as you can see here, I put a kit by Sky Manufacturing, which moves the shackle to the rear, so it adds the bracket up front as opposed to the rear. And if you want to move to the rear, puts the shackle in the back. As you can see, it adds for a lot more movement. Now the spring I decided to choose was a V-Code off a 2001 F350. Now the difference between the V-Code is it's a little softer spring and it's 4 inches longer. So this kit allows for that 4 inches of extra length. Much better ride. Here's the rear suspension. Now many people don't opt for the rear suspension mod because the front suspension is adequate, but I decided to get V-Code springs off of a 2002 F350. Now this here is a recent mod of mine, a friend of mine came up with. This is actually a 2002 Super Duty rear axle. Now in 1999 they came out with a different lug pattern for these trucks. Instead of 8 on 6.5, it was changed to 8 on 170. There's a problem. So my buddy of mine went to a custom manufacturer, had them make some custom hubs to make it 8 on 6.5. So now the dilemma was we had to find brakes. Well, the E350s, the vans, did not go to the metric bolt pattern. So what we used is an E350 rotor and an F350 pad, and used a 2008 style cover. Now we're going to be discussing the performance I have done on this 7.3 Powerstroke. Now 94.5 to 2003 was the years they had the 7.3 Powerstroke. A few things changed over the years, but they're basically the same platform. Now what I've done is quite a bit. I've added some stage 2 injectors. Now they are 180 cc's with 80% nozzles. I have added tuning in order to make everything work properly. I've added an H2E turbo from Hypermax. Now what this is a standard rotation turbo with a T4i flange. So it allows me to use many different turbos. It's much larger than the factory turbo as well. Does not use the same pedestal. I've also added an intercooler. I actually had a Banks intercooler to begin with the stock turbo. I still have the Banks intercooler, but I had to change the piping once I added the H2E. I've also added electric fuel systems, you can see here. The stock fuel bowl is missing. All I have is a regulator. Now what this is a Super Duty pump on the frame rail, which is key on position once it's turned on, with 2 fuel water separator fuel filters. So it comes up and feeds the engine, much smoother operation. Also what has been added here is a Stealth high pressure oil pump. The Stealth high pressure oil pump is their new SRP1. The SRP1 is a high pressure oil pump, basically in the stock case with billet parts. Adds for much more volume in order to supply for the injectors. It is actually, I would say, overkill for these stage 2 injectors, but it's neat. We are now hopping on the freeway with the 14-foot trailer. Now with all the performance mods we've done, 65 is easily attained. Hardly even hitting 1,000 EGTs. Boost is at 10 pounds. Easily cruising right along. for watching my video. Hopefully everyone learned some today about modifying an old body style Powerstroke.